Hello, everyone. This is Nathan Theo Naika from Vedic Astrology, and I'm joined here today with my friend Patrick. Hello, Patrick.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Nathan.
We are going to talk about Tina Turner's chart today, and just a little short video just to, just speak about this iconic woman and what she has done in her life and things that she has overcome to have the success and to keep the success that she has in her life. And I think, her life is very interesting, also because of the turnaround to, faith in her life and what that has done. And so I thought it'd be interesting to see, given this time, right, we're going through a lot of challenges personally in all of our lives where we have to stand up for things that we want and do the hard work to get there. And I think this may be quite inspirational for people. So
Sure. Yeah.
I'm using a Leo ascendant chart for Tina Turner because I think it makes more sense given what I've understood about her chart and her life. So that's how I'm going to read it.
Right.
So if we just take the ascendant and start with that, the ascendant characteristics for Leo are, and I'm reading here from the text, good stature, full body, well-framed and upright, well-set shoulders, bright brownish eyes, oval face, body complexion, dignified and royal bearing, which is definitely something that suits her very, very well, And having the sun in the fourth house really gives somebody a focus for ultimately happiness, personal happiness, because the fourth house is Sukha Bhava. It is happiness, is seen from that. And so there's a focus of the Lagna Lord, the ascendant ruler, on those matters in her life, even though they will present challenges to her in her personal life. But the ability to overcome and triumph from that is a big part of her story. So if we look at her fourth house, where the ascendant ruler, the sun, is placed, we can understand that the sun is in the sign of Scorpio, which also supports somebody who is on a journey of protecting herself and learning, transforming the identity through life, transformation of the self, standing up for oneself, and going through difficult situations is going to be a part of her journey. Finding what her strengths are, digging deep. And in some interviews that we read, she very much speaks to that sense of personal integrity and triumph and victory. I think I read here she gave an interview and she was talking about the words that sum up her life, and one of them was victory. One of them was victory. To see that. Okay.
In another interview that I read, she'd also spoken about, and this was shortly before, spiritual practice became very important for her. She'd always said that she'd been going at it. She'd been doing everything as much as she, doing her life as best as she knew how to. Despite the fact that people might have seen that she was clearly going through a difficult time, she nonetheless persisted, which is very, very admirable to do.
Yes. It's going to increase your volume. There we go. Right.
Right.
That's better. Okay. So, and we can see that the ninth house, which is showing both the father, we can look at it from the sense of father, is Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Okay. So this is the ninth lord sitting here. And the fourth house, which is Scorpio, is also ruled by Mars, and that is also the fourth house ruler, the fourth lord of the chart. So both
Right.
parents are indicated by this Mars as well in terms of what they're doing with her as the rulers of those two houses. And this Mars is in Aquarius and it is in the seventh house and it is going away. And that is what happened. Her parents in her early childhood were not really that informed or engaged with her, and they spent a long time away from her because of the World War that happened in the 40s. So and she was separated from her parents for some time, and you can see in this chart that this Mars is basically pulling this ascended axis. And so the ninth lord, you're looking for many time, she's always looking for dharma. She's looking to do the right thing. And, those themes are very strong in her life. And in a Mangala sort of way, she is a fighting spirit. And Mangala in the seventh house, people fight very, very, very hard for what they want in life. And
And most,
yeah,
sorry, no, go ahead.
no, say what?
No, I was going to say, I mean, if anything, that is a huge motivator for actually trying to even find direction in your life, especially if your parents, who are supposed to be the two most important people that you initially learn everything about the world and from your life from, are just separated from you for such a long time. And almost most anybody, one would expect in those circumstances, would really try very hard to find direction in their life.
Yes, yeah. It's as the ninth lord giving direction, that's what you mean, right? Yeah, the ninth lord is
Yes,
indicating that
direction.
the destiny factor. So there's a destiny factor here in the matter of relationships that is coming to bear. And this Mangala has Graha Drishti on the 10th house moon. So that's going to also impact in the work that she's doing as a singer, very capable singer, exalted moon in the 10th house. So we can see that. There is an exchange, this this ninth lord is here in exchange with the seventh lord Saturn in this chart. And that is also linked to the amount of there's always this conflict with partners and control agendas, dynamics with the partners that came into our life through that Saturn Ketu yoga that is in the ninth house in her chart, and probably why she moved away from religion and things early on. If the malefics, and you have to learn this. Don't want a religion that is too controlling. Especially for a sun-focused Lagna ascendant, they're going to reject this Saturn, debilitated Saturn, who is getting Nicha Bhanga from the Mars, yes? So the ability to move forward starts to happen here, starts to happen.
Right.
We can also think about it as Mars is the ruler of the sun in the chart. Okay, so one big area of her life that, for public life at least, is going to be the matter of relationships or business partnerships and what they're doing together. All right, and that's how she started off. She was in partnership with her second partner, and they were singing a duet. They were singing as a duet for a very long time, and she was known as
yes.
And it was a very abusive, physically abusive relationship that she was in. And she eventually broke away from that and tried to do things on her own. We can see the other ruler of the sun is Ketu, and that is going to be Ketu in the ninth house, which we can also see as maybe the latest spirituality and drive that comes in, especially if the influence on the seventh house happens with Ketu and she's able to break free of the partner that was too controlling, then she can go more easily towards her own spiritual aspirations there, which is also something good for her to do with people. and for the world, for the public, which is what she's doing now later in her life. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. With all of the work that she's doing with all of these different foundations, I mean,
Yes.
particularly with the current Buddhist practice, she's been very, very vocal about how that all has sort of changed her life. Even from very, very early on when she actually began practicing Buddhism.
Mm.
Um, she mentions in an interview that she was at a recording session, and people could see that she was extremely nervous, and one of the sound engineers actually suggested her, oh, hey, why don't you try chanting? And she was like, and she sort of discounted it for a couple of months until her youngest son came along to her a few months later with a Buddhist rosary. And he said to her that he'd been joining a Buddhist chanting group, and she was like, what? And then she also sort of, wrote that off. And then I came to her again with somebody else who wanted to come to speak to her about Buddhist chanting. And then it was then with that third time that she was like, okay, I guess the universe is trying to send me a message. I should incorporate this, and she did. And she said, from that moment onwards, when she incorporated chanting, I think the mantra was Nam Myoho Renge Kyo.
Yes.
Daily in her life, she said things had changed. And
Yes.
she said that was one of the huge motivations for her to keep up the spiritual practice was, in fact, this constant reminder isn't the correct word to use, but this constant proof that things are working. The more I do this, the more I can see things unfolding. So she really anchored herself in that proof as a motivation and a means for actually going forward. And usually to speak to, sort of what you said earlier about her sort of people who might want to reject their initial religions, because of whatever circumstances happened to them. One would think that she was brought up Baptist. And we know that is quite in the area that she's brought up in, it's quite I don't want to say culture, but it's quite a lifestyle. You brought up Baptist, you are Baptist, that is a huge part of your identity. And for her, she said that people asked, but you're Buddhist and you were brought up Baptist. What's actually happening? Did you let go of that of that Baptist identity of yours? And she said no. Buddhism for her didn't actually even cancel the Buddhist the Baptist influences that she'd had as a child. In fact, in Buddhism, it actually shown her to sort of cultivate both of them, which for her then now is quite a central point in her life. So it's very good to see. I mean, this sort of, I don't know if you want to use the term middle path, that she's trying her best to follow that, and that has really, really given a huge, strong sense of direction in her life. So it's really interesting to see from this point of view.
Right. I mean, so how would we see mantra? I mean, we'd see mantra from the 5th house, right?
Right.
So here we can see that yes, the 5th lord is Jupiter, and it's in the 8th house. So there's all these three malefics on either side, and so that is a problem in getting it started. So there were 3 times that we could probably look into more details and maybe identify each of those 3 people a bit more. So there were 3 times, 3 things that had to be overcome, and then the Jupiter was able to speak, and the Jupiter is speaking through the moon because Jupiter's in his own sign here, right? So and that is the 12th lord in the 10th. So she's doing more social work. She's doing something more for the community. She's having that sense about it coming up as she's getting older, because it takes time for these malefics to pass. Yeah. But
Yes,
that is the
yes.
testimony of the mantra, and that she's sticking to it so strongly,
Right, right.
in that way. Because ultimately, this Mangala Shani, they will operate as if they're in own sign, and that makes the
Mm,
Shukra stronger, end of the day. Okay,
right, right, right.
so that Shukra, that Venus in the fifth house, right, and
Mm,
becomes stronger. So she gets a loving relationship as opposed to a seventh house
mm,
relationship, and that is what
mm.
happened. She got a lot of success. The song that made
Yes.
it was, "What's Love Got to Do with It" in 1985, and this is the Venus in the sign of Jupiter, and because that's what she's looking for in her life. What does love have to do with it, with all of this?
Yes,
You know,
yes.
who needs a heart when a heart can be broken? This Lagna law, this ascendant ruler in the fourth house in zero
Mm,
directional strength. These
yes,
questions that she's had for a long time about the direction,
yes.
in her life, and how
Mm,
that is moving forward. I think she finally got the blessing of that Venus in the fifth house. Um,
yeah.
she found love. It wasn't a formal marriage for decades.
Yes. 27 years, in fact.
27 years, yes.
Yeah,
And then
27,
she,
yeah.
and then she,
Yes.
formalized the marriage. And
And I mean, sorry?
I think there
Yeah.
was a point. I think the person also donated one of their kidneys to her, or vice
Oh,
versa.
oh my.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was
Oh,
also. I think it was her. I think it was her. Um, yeah, yeah. Um, but we can see that the Mantresha, the fifth lord Jupiter, is having an
mm,
aspect on the Mercury, in trans to Mercury and the Sun, right? So we
right,
expect
right.
Mercury to have an influence when we're talking about Buddhism and things like that. And it is, anyway, with
Right.
the ruler of the ascendant. So it is strong in the fourth house, which is the Moksha Kendra, right?
Yes,
The
yes,
beginning of the spiritual path. We need to look at the fourth
yes.
house very carefully. And so seeing Mercury there having an influence, that part really might speak to her very, very well, because for someone,
Mm,
understandably, who has had so much Mangala, difficult experiences in relationships in her life,
mm, mm.
having a more peaceful middle path with Mercury um,
Yes,
is probably something that is going to bring a lot of healing, and that Scorpio, that transformation of the sun
yes, definitely,
that is going
definitely.
to happen in her life. Um,
And,
yeah, she worked with partners very heavily because the Mars is in the 10th house from the moon, etc.
right.
And moon, in the 7th house from the sun, and in the 10th house from the ascendant, and other factors is very strong, for the singing and the spontaneous,
Yes,
very powerful presence as a singer and things like that. But
yes,
not so. The sun in zero directional strength and moon in zero directional strength, is not so great for a personal life, especially
right,
because marriage, the 12th house ruler is this moon. So there's some issues there, with that.
right,
So
right.
she was pregnant with her first person out of wedlock, and so she was kicked out of her house. Her mother kicked her out of the house, and she had to go stay with the second person that she was seeing, and so it was
Right.
very complicated scenario. We know with Mercury Moon coming together with the 12th
Mm.
house, there's always
Contention,
that sort of
tension.
scenario coming up because the moon is very emotional,
Yes, yes.
very responsive and receiving of influences.
Just a quick thing. If I can remember offhand about Buddhism, isn't it quite a Mars-like um, Mars-like type
Well,
of
it was a Mars Mercury
Mars
dynamic
Mercury?
because he was also quite a rebel for his times, but the extreme
Right.
focus, the
Mm.
emphasis on non-violence was very, very strong, very, very strong.
Right.
And
And
so
mm,
all the
yes, all that.
all the primary people that are really truly on the path of Buddhism have this
Mm.
dynamic in their life about violence, non-violence. And he, the
Yes.
Buddhism path is really very good at resolving those issues from a spiritual point of view.
Right. Right. It's very interesting for me that Mars Mercury is featuring quite so prominently over here for her, and that same ideal from Buddhism is one can see how it really resonates, um, in particular for her, or why or rather why the teachings of Buddhism, specifically Nichiren Buddhism, which she follows, really resonates with her as a person. Um,
Mm,
hmm,
mm. Yeah, you can see the signs of Mars have this problem. They are quite important in this chart.
right, right.
Mercury is sort of merged with the sun here, the ruler of the ascendant, and it's also the sun. So
Yeah.
it really speaks to her sense of herself and things like that. And once because the Mercury being combust and the Jupiter, the fifth lord, also being in own sign, this is coming through the moon that is having an influence,
Mm,
on that. Both the Jupiter and
mm.
moon are having an influence on that as well.
Yes.
So, this Venus who is in the fifth house is the ruler of the moon, the Shubhapati. So there's
Right. Yes.
mantra activation that can help her change also her mind, to free
Mm,
it from
yeah.
all of this Shani Ketu in the 12th house from the moon, you know,
Yes. Yes.
because they are not really mutually can happen nicely. She's moving away from those family dynamics and things like that. She's moving towards
Mm,
the Mercury, see, moving towards
mm,
the
mm.
Mercury. And so the moon is moving. And so it comes later in life with this Sun Mercury
Yeah.
here.
I must say, I love how she. I'm going to quote a piece from this interview that she gave when she actually spoke about her whole journey with Buddhism, and just in what you said now with how people who truly follow it, they resonate with these principles of nonviolence. I mean, she specifically says she believes that the remedy for divisiveness is to cultivate and spread compassion for all living beings. And then, she goes on to say that our human family must end the toxic karmic pattern of divisiveness before it ends us. And to me, that's wow, that's really somebody who's very strongly, um,
Mm.
dedicated to this path
Yes,
that
very,
she's
very
following.
strongly indicated. I mean, her image in the world is coming from this sign here of Scorpio.
Of course.
And
Of course.
so, for various reasons, but one of them being the Lagna Lord is there in the fourth house.
Mm,
And the fifth house ruler from the ascendant is in the
mm,
fifth house from the sun,
mm.
right? And this moon that is in the 10th house from the ascendant is in the seventh house
Right.
from the sun. So in terms of the kendras, from Lagna and
Mm.
from the luminaries, they are coincident in this chart.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so that is sort of very, very important. But this ninth lord being in the 10th house from the moon is, and it's
Mm,
also the ruler of the sun sign, and is driving
mm.
a chariot here in this chart is very sort of telling that
Yes.
she's going to this archetype of Aquarius Mars
Right. Yeah.
or Aries Mars, depending, right?
Yes. Yes. Depending on the exchange.
Depending on the exchange when it happens, that is going to give it a tremendous knowledge. Eventually, it will all translate to knowledge because Saturn and Mars
Right.
go into their own signs, and she'll have the knowledge of
Mm.
all of that to bear upon what she's doing. Um, yeah, yeah. So that is.
And with
Mm,
oh yes, sorry. With the exchange that actually happens, yeah. I realized Ketu, the south node, goes into the seventh house. And
eventually,
it
yeah.
usually, eventually, yes, he goes into the seventh house. And I mean, it makes me think of what's love got to do with it.
Yeah, what's
When
love
she
got to do
eventually
with it?
asked, what does love have to do with it? And then shortly after, the partner comes.
Yeah, shortly after that, Venus gave her the partner. But that is how Ketu is. We can see that the
Yes.
Saturn is debilitated but retrograde. See?
Right. Yes.
So she's feeling like she's in a control situation, but externally she's having results of exaltation, which is what the
Yes.
whole world saw. Okay, you're with that guy
Yes.
and the seventh lord and all that. Personally and privately, it may not be such a great thing, but outside you are doing big things together and working very
Big
hard.
things. Yes.
In this third house, they were really very mobile from place to
Yes. Yes. Gosh, very.
and doing things all over the place. So yeah. And looking at the sun sign and looking at the rule of the ascendant, you can see that on either side is this Venus Rahu. And that really typifies her life in terms of her relationships and the impact they've had on her identity and the transformation of that and pushing that, So by getting a mantra, by activating the fifth house, you've given more strength to this side.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, you've given more strength to this side. And by following that mantra, you've made the moon stronger. So ultimately, it does all come down to strengthening the kendras in the chart.
In the chart.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So
it's so strange. You think it's such a simple mantra, and it comes to you, the suggestion to it comes to you so by the way. And until you decide to take it seriously, bam, everything just takes off.
Yes. Is it Namyo Renge Kyo or Namyo Ho Renge Kyo?
Let me check. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo.
Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Right.
Yeah, Nam-myoho Renge Kyo.
Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Okay.
And she says this. She actually says here with the mantra, she says it has a very clear musical rhythm, very similar to singing.
Yes, it does. Even when the people that I know who are regular practitioners of this for decades, they really it becomes its own rhythm with it. It sort of fills the space with it. It's like a phoenix, it feels like that.
Yes.
It's like the phoenix, blazing through. It feels like that, but it's also very gentle because it's an invocation of the heart, the lotus, the heart sutra. So yeah, it's actually a sort of it's a commitment sort of mantra, because Namyo, you are saying you are dedicating yourself to the Rengekyo, which is the heart lotus. Yeah. So it's an affirmation, it's a commitment to that. So you're keeping the focus there in the heart. Yeah.
It's really so important to strengthen that chart angle then. Because the whole life is just
the fourth house, and the heart of the moon is the seventh house from the moon. So the heart from the lagna is the fourth house, but the heart from the moon is the seventh.
So either way, she's strengthening both of them, in fact.
Yeah, this Mercury is the only benefic in the kendras. Besides the moon, this Mercury, right, is also helping. So she was doing the moon things very well, right?
Yes.
But having personal life issues because of that. But this Mercury having effect here in the 10th house made this moon stronger as well.
Yes.
Made this moon stronger as well. Mercury in the 4th house, so the home life, the beginning, education, all that was quite disrupted. Mercury in the 4th house is not so great for the sense of self with the sun, the rule of the ascendant.
Right.
But over time, it is having an impact here with the moon. And she initially wants to go into nursing. See? Mercury. Yeah. She initially wanted to do work of nursing, which you can understand. That would have been, also Saturn as the 6th lord, combining with the
Right.
ninth lord, direction. So
Right.
it, in service, in service, the sixth lord with the ninth lord, having an exchange. But then that became the seventh lord took his role as seventh lord took over, especially since
Right.
the other seventh lord Rahu is looking
Oh my.
at the Mangala, right? So Rahu will push that.
Yes. Yes, he will push. Yes. He
Will
will
push.
push it.
Yeah. 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 Rahu in a sign of Venus, Venus on the other side, this complicated yoga on either side of the sun and Mercury. But strengthening the Mercury influence made this fourth house, 10th house axis
Yes.
better for her, better for her. So she could fight back. I mean, reclaim really transform the sun. Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
really transform the sun. Um, let's see here. Right, right, right. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that should be enough for talking about her. And she's doing amazing things. I mean, she's 81. She's in the 80s now.
Yeah. Yes, she's in her 80s. Wow. Yes.
She's still going strong. And in her second half of her life, she's retreated from the world, as we would expect with the sun in the fourth house, person with the 12th house ruler, angular. You'd want to later on in life, once all these nice things are finished,
Yes.
you want to basically have your fourth house, your happiness, and keep it and prioritize your peace, and her community work there, which is what she's using her voice now for in that service. So maybe the Saturn as a sixth lord is now working more with the ninth lord to be of service, with people, for people. And that's what she's doing. This moon is important because it's always giving results of this Jupiter, right? So it's not like we're ignoring the Jupiter in the eighth house. She has debt to those people. But
Yes.
we are just saying this moon is very, very potent and powerful because it has the Jupiter behind it. Yeah, yeah, and it's a Kendra moon, which has sustained her life in her ability to sing.
Yes. Yes.
Has
Yes.
really
It has sustained it completely.
And has given her, a lot of recognition abroad. 12th house.
Yeah.
Right, and things like that. Yeah, well, okay. I hope you all enjoyed this little short discussion about someone's chart, and we hope to do small, many other short videos like this. Just very basic kind of Vedic astrology, not going into, fancy things, just to make it more accessible to people and to understand. This is the South Indian chart, by the way. I should have said this in the beginning, where this is Aries over here, and we go around clockwise, around the chart.
Oh,
and
right.
this is Pisces. So for people who don't know, that's how this chart is constructed. So the ascendant is here in Leo, where I've put it. Okay, so yeah, I think she has a couple of biographies already written, but they were written about in the 1980s. But I see that they are currently making a movie, a biopic as well about her life, which would be good timing, I think, for her life.
Yes.
Her life going
What was this biopic called? Oh, yes. Oh, in actual fact, last year, she actually released a new book, Happiness Becomes You.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Happiness Becomes You. See the
Yes, in 2021, Tina.
Oh, the
Her
movie is going
biopic
to be
is
called
called Tina.
The movie is going to be called Tina.
Yes, it is called Tina. Yes, it's a documentary film. Yeah.
Oh, it's out already.
Directed by Dan Lindsay and TJ Martin. It looks like it's out. Yes, it looks like it's out already. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
Tina. Yes,
interesting.
she in
Interesting.
actual fact she made an appearance in it.
Oh wow, that's amazing. I must watch it. Yes.
Yes,
Um,
definitely something to watch.
yes, yes. So, in essence, if you're looking at Tina Turner, she's someone who can inspire you to follow the direction in your life.
Hmm.
Because the ninth house, the ninth lord is very powerful, moving things and activating things.
Hmm.
It is of the nature of Mars. So those were the challenges that she had to go through in her life, through the seventh house gate. But you know, looking at her life, we can also take comfort that there are people in this world that do persist and persevere, and she's very much about that, and becoming strong and strengthening oneself and having that sense of personal integrity, reclaiming and restoring and protecting that sense of personal integrity is very, very important aspects of her life. And that thread runs through her entire life, even when left she left her second partner and in the 70s, and for a couple of years she had nothing. She was doing very difficult jobs to get by and trying to do things, and it wasn't really working out so great as a solo artist. Sun in the
Yeah.
fourth house is not so, it's difficult to make those things move. Okay, but she overcame them with her associations, and people that helped her along the way. She
Mm.
had some very fortunate connections with people, and she also benefited them along the way as well.
Yep.
So that is a testament to the power of this moon in this chart, as well. Yeah.
And
Okay.
definitely
So
for me, also my takeaway is you can almost never go wrong with a strong spiritual practice if you feel that it is very necessary in your life, particularly if it constantly keeps on presenting itself to you. The
oh yeah,
universe
like you
giving
did
you
with
a big hint saying, hey, here's something, you
yes,
need to follow it.
yeah. It's a nice example to see. It's a full moon chart in effect. It's sort of like a full moon chart. Not exactly, but it is sort of like a full moon chart. And the moon is still very full here, of light.
Right.
And so we can also understand that even if the ruler of the ascendant is having some challenges,
Mm.
if the moon is okay in a chart, you see, that can make a big difference. There's not that
Yeah,
many
definitely.
uh, afflictions here. The moon is having a Pisces Jupiter informing it. It itself is exalted. It is strong in the Kendra of the chart. It only has Rashi Drishti of Rahu. And
Mm.
yeah. So there's
Yes,
Graha
yes.
Drishtis of Mangala, but that's the ninth lord. So that will push Dharma. But there's only the Rashi Drishti of the Rahu, which is, in the sign of Venus. That is what, happened. You know, why she accepted those kind of people as partners, because Rahu as the seventh lord, it's for work, right? 10th house,
Yeah, yes.
right? And again, the ninth lord is driving that. So we can
Right.
see that, if the moon is okay in chart, it's you can overcome things, you can persist, because the moon
Mm.
ultimately approves, things for happiness, because the moon rules the natural fourth house. Moon and Jupiter have a
Right.
very strong say when it comes to happiness in a chart, in the person has in life. Um, so, so we can see the Jupiter happiness is delayed because of the malefics on either side. So the moon was
Right.
driving the whole show for a long time. The moon was driving, and then eventually, when she started doing mantra, fifth lord, this Jupiter became
Mm.
activated very strongly in the fifth house from the sun, and
Right.
that moved her life forward in a very different way. Yeah, yeah. Jupiter, when it's strong, will transform everybody around, because that's what a good teacher guide does in one's life.
Yes, yes.
All the
Also,
negative
also.
things that have happened, you gain understanding about them, and they become different. They become wisdom. They give you wisdom. Yeah, yeah. So she's become a very wise person. If you read any of her, I want to read her recent book, actually, Happiness Becomes You, because that is really a statement of Lagna Lord in the fourth house. Happiness becomes you.
Yes,
You know,
definitely.
and
Wow.
it's with Mercury, right? She wrote a book about that. So it's a statement
Yes.
that, this fourth house has been restored. She's
Mm.
owned that Kendra fully, and it's the strongest Kendra in
Yes.
the chart, just from a Kendra point of view. So ultimately,
Yeah.
it is like that. It's good to see. Okay, well, thanks, Patrick, for your time.
Thank you, Nathan. I
Yes,
appreciate it. Thank you for the
hopefully
chat.
we'll,
It
we'll
was
do
good to
another
chat
video
about
at some.
her.
We'll do another video at
Most
some point.
certainly.
Maybe next month. Yeah, we'll see. We'll find someone
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. We can
Okay.
find somebody.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks. Have a great day,
Bye
brother.
bye. Bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.